Back to the Future, the 1985 hit movie where Marty McFly got into a stainless steel DeLorean, went back in time and created history, or recreated history. Anyway, the movie quickly became a pop culture sensation, grossing $381 million and led to amazing 2 sequels. Now, let's go back in time and have a closer look at what's regarded by many as a supposedly perfect film. Number 10, Back to the Rejection. No one wanted to make this movie. The script was rejected more than 40 times by major studios, including Disney, who thought the movie was too raunchy and had implications of incest. Well, Marty's mother does have the hots for him throughout the movie and did tongue her son in the car outside the school dance, so they do have a point. However, the funny thing is that Disney now owns Star Wars, a story famous for an on-screen kiss between 2 characters who turn out to be brother and sister. So pick your battles, I guess. Number 9, attention to detail. One of the things that makes Back to the Future great is the attention to detail that it has in subtle blink and you'll miss the moments. For example, the mall where Doc Brown and Marty rendezvous at the beginning of the movie is called the Twin Pines Mall, named after 2 pine trees on the site that old farmer Otis Peabody had prominently displayed out by his mailbox on his ranch. When Marty goes back in time to 1955, he accidentally runs over one of the trees with the DeLorean. In a subtle detail at the end of the movie, the mall is now called Lone Pine Mall. Another example is the 3rd movie, Clayton Ravine, which was so named after teacher Clara Clayton, who fell to her death in the very ravine. However, Doc Brown ends up saving her in that movie. Marty uses the alias of Clint Eastwood and was assumingly thought to have been on the train that plunged into the ravine whilst pushing the DeLorean up to 88 miles per hour. In a subtle reference to this, when Marty returns to 1985, it is now called Eastwood Ravine. Speaking of Clint Eastwood, Marty uses the same bulletproof chest plate trick that we see in A Fistful of Dollars, which Biff is watching on TV in the alternate 1985 in the second film. Number 8, Doc Brown and Marty's weird relationship. Although I've always thought of the relationship between Doc Brown and Marty McFly has always been a wholesome one, there are people out there that think the relationship has a creepy undertone of grooming. As I've grown older, I can understand why many people thought this. I mean, Marty is a 17-year-old teen, while Doc Brown is a 65-year-old man who gets Marty to meet him at 1 a.m. in the morning and all weird hours of the night. Makes you wonder what his parents think of this, but is easily explained by the fact that his mother is an alcoholic and his father is a wimp, so they probably weren't too concerned. Mental Floss asked Bob Gale, the co-writer of the film, how they came to know each other, and his response was this. He snuck into Doc's lab and was fascinated by all the cool stuff that was there. When Doc found him there, he was delighted to find that Marty thought he was cool and accepted him for what he was. Both of them were the black sheep in their respective environments. Doc gave Marty a part-time job to help with experiments, tend to the lab, and tend to the dog, etc. So there it is. Number 7. No Tannon Rival for Marty. In the Back to the Future series, there happens to be a member of the Tannon family to serve as a bully figure against different generations in the McFly family. It's implied that Seamus McFly in 1885 has previously been hassled by Buford Mad Dog Tannon. George McFly in 1955 has Biff Tannon, who forces him to do his homework, etc. Marty McFly Jr. in 2015 has Griff Tannon. However, it should be noted that Marty McFly Sr. in 1985 has no equivalent bully to serve as an antagonist against him. There is Douglas Needles, played by Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but he's more of an asshole and likes to incite Marty to do irresponsible things, but he's not a bully as such. Could this be the reason why Marty has always had more confidence than his father or his son? Biff obviously would have had a child in order to have a grandchild. Various sources, such as the animated series, says he has a son called Biff Jr., and the video game mentions that he has a daughter named Tiff. We hear nothing of them in the film series. Number 6. Doc's Rejuvenation mystery. In the second film, when Doc Brown takes Marty and Jennifer forward to 2015, he's wearing an old man wake-up because he was afraid Marty wouldn't recognize him. This is because Doc has been to a rejuvenation clinic which added 30 or so years to his life, so he now looks 30 years younger. This always confused me slightly as a kid, as I didn't pay much attention to what they were saying about the rejuvenation clinic and thought it was 1955 Doc Brown in 2015. Further adding to this confusion was that the cops that taking a passed out Jennifer to her 2015 home, they suggest that she looks incredibly young for a 47-year-old and she must have had a hell of a facelift. But why would this be so surprising considering the procedure Doc just had done? Why isn't everyone else younger looking like Biff? After thinking about this can be explained away by what Doc said to Marty about having gone even further in time before pinpointing exactly where things had gone wrong for Marty's family in 2015. So if he had been to, say, 2045, considering Doc likes going forward and backwards in 30-year blocks of time, perhaps those types of rejuvenation clinics would be commonplace in that time. Either way, I think this aspect of the movie doesn't really contribute to the story at all, and I think it was probably just put in so that Christopher Lloyd wouldn't have to keep going through lengthy makeup process for the remaining 2 movies. Number 5. Casting and recasting. Throughout the trilogy, we see several members of the McFly family, with Michael J. Fox playing many of them. He obviously stars as Marty McFly and Marty's son, Marty Jr. They're wearing brown contact lenses and some protruding teeth. He also plays Seamus McFly, Marty's ancestor in 1885, wearing a red-headed wig and facial hair. Fox plays the part of Seamus so well that when you're watching the film, it's easy to forget that they are the same actor. Many people, though, are quite surprised when they are told the part of Marty's future daughter, Marlene, is also played by Michael J. Fox. I can obviously tell now after having watched the film hundreds of times over the years, but when I was a kid, I literally had no idea. I just thought she was a weird looking girl. She only has a few moments of screen time during a dinner scene, so it may be easy to overlook. Leah Thompson plays multiple roles as Lorraine McFly, Marty's mother, and Margaret McFly, Seamus McFly's wife. Everyone knows Eric Stoltz was replaced by Michael J. Fox after he didn't gel with the tone of the movie they were going for. The role of Jennifer was also recast for the second movie, replacing Claudia Wells with Elizabeth Shue of Karate Kid fame, due to Wells' mother having stage 4 cancer. So hats off to her for having her priorities in order. She may not have become a big star, but was a real-life hero. Crispin Glover was replaced by Jeffrey Wiseman for the second movie due to him wanting both the same pay as Michael J. Fox and script approval. Yeah, okay buddy. The mistake the filmmakers did was they used prosthetics from the molds of Glover's face from the first movie and hence Glover's likeness. There really wasn't any need for this, as the character appears only very briefly and upside down, so you couldn't really tell anyway. This did result in Crispin Glover suing Universal Studios and the filmmakers for using his likeness. This was settled out of court to the tune of $760,000. Number 4. Back to the Future products. On top of the product placement throughout the movies, such as Pepsi and Nike, there have been numerous products that have originated from the films themselves. That is, people have tried to engineer from what they saw in the second movie. These included the special edition Nike mags that were modeled after the ones Marty wears in 2015, including self-lacing varieties, which are insanely expensive. Hoverboards have been tried and tried again, and well, they kind of got hovering boards. They weren't levitating as in the movies, and nowhere near as cool as the one in Back to the Future. People that still own DeLoreans most of the time tend to upgrade with faux flux capacitors and Mr. Fusions to make them look more like the time machine. Number 3. Cameos and Bit Parts. Musicians Huey Lewis, ZZ Top, Flea already mentioned, and Michael Jackson impersonator. While we're at it, we might as well add Ronald Reagan and Ayatollah or Rock and Roller Khomeini in there too. Eddie Van Halen has been mentioned as having a cameo, but it's just his name on a cassette tape. Yeah, remember those? On that same line, we'd also have to include Chuck Berry on the phone. Classic Western actors Dub Taylor, Pat Buttram, and Harry Carey Jr. make an appearance. Mary Ellen Trainor, you may know her as the mother in The Goonies or the psychiatrist Lethal Weapon, plays the role of one of the cops that takes Jennifer home. For you Lord of the Rings fans out there, you will see an 8-year-old Elijah Wood in the Cafe 80s playing a wild gunman. I have to admit I completely missed this despite the number of times I've seen it. There are small roles of Biff and Griff slugs having been filled by Billy Zane, Jason Scott Lee, and at least 2 Nightmare on Elm Street actors. Number 2. The mystery of the train crossing signal. A WTF moment I've experienced time and time again is at the end of the third film when Marty and Jennifer are at the railroad tracks and they hear a train crossing signal going off with not a train in sight, which leaves them a bit confused. A little while later, we realize it was due to Doc Brown, Clara, and their 2 children arriving in a newly built locomotive time machine. However, this isn't entirely believable. Yeah, I know, a movie about time machines is believable, right? But hear me out. The way most train crossing signals work is they require the train's wheels to run over a certain point of track, thereby triggering the signal. But in the movie, the signal gets triggered a full 14 seconds before the train shows up, so it makes no sense. Though if if you want to get technical, you could probably argue that the electrical disturbance caused before the arrival of the new time machine caused the impedance in the signal circuit to change and thus triggering the signal, or some bullshit like that. Number 1. Inaccurate Future. Director Robert Zemeckis was hesitant to take the movie to the future, stating that I'll never really wanted to go to the future in the Back to the Future movies because I don't like seeing the future in any movie, because the only kind of future that the audience actually accept is that Orwellian dark future. So the problem with doing movies in the future is that you are always wrong. Despite this, the second movie did take the movie to the future of 2015, albeit a parody of itself. I'm glad they made it a bright, fun, colorful future. It gives the movie a real feel-good quality. They did get a lot of things wrong, but they also did get some things right. Wrong in terms of flying cars, people still using phone booths, faxes, and newspapers, the lack of personal phones. Okay, I guess some people still read newspapers, but come on, even Star Trek had personal communication devices. It was right in terms of video calls, accurate weather predictions, as these days anyone with a phone can check the weather down to the hour. Slow postal service, yeah, I generally wait weeks for my online packages to arrive. I also thought it was funny and sad that Marty McFly would like his son to watch a little more TV for a change, as it reflects what parents face these days, with children more addicted to tablets and phones instead of just watching TV like the good old days. I'm still waiting on those pizza hydrators though. All in all, Back to the Future is a film trilogy that's near perfection, if not absolute perfection. As far as fun, entertaining, and inspiring story goes, all three parts are fantastic and work together well and tell one continuous story. This is why I've included these three movies into a single video, because it's one big story split up into three. This puts it into the same category as original Star Wars movies and Lord of the Rings stories, and is a far cry from other trilogies that have, you know, one or two great movies and then a poor third one. For example, the Godfather trilogy. The Future Part 2 is generally my favorite segment due to the future scenes, but the others are great too. The underlying subject matter of the films, for example, Marty and George's fear of rejection causing them to hold back their own dreams, and Marty's constant need to prove himself and not be labeled a chicken, are stories of their own and inspire others to overcome their own issues. The casting is spot on. Everyone suits their roles to a T. The movies are very much watchable today as they were when I was a kid. One simply needs to imagine that they're going to 2045 instead of 2015, and that all falls into place. It made such a big cultural impact on multiple generations. I really love this trilogy, and I'm sure my children will too. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, read my facts.